Family! Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? This is my cousin Paul.
This is my cousin Liam.
And today we are actually going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be having a conversation about Quentin Tarantino's filmography. We've decided a little while ago that we wanted to have a conversation about this. I thank you, Paul, for coming here.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is actually something I wanted to talk to you before on camera, because we've had a few conversations about some of these films, and I thought it was time, to just talk about them. And hopefully, in another year or so, Tarantino will be releasing his 9th film.
I sure hope so.
If the 3-year rule still applies to everything. So, might as well do this. And I just want to stress right now, we're not going to be rating the films. We're not going to be saying, this is the best Tarantino movie. We'll say like our personal favorites, but we're not going to be criticizing them.
They're all good.
Yeah, exactly. But there's not really a bad film that we can find in this. That's the first thing we decided. We weren't going to like smack talk any of these movies. We're going to be pointing out a few things that we like about each of the films, a few things we're either not crazy about or that we think don't work, but we're not going to be saying after each talk, this is the rating that we give, we're just going to have a discussion mostly for this. And we're going to start, actually, with his first film, Reservoir Dogs. Now, before I start talking, because I will be talking a lot, I want to have Paul, I would love to hear a little bit about what you think about Reservoir Dogs, just as a film.
Dogs, in my opinion, it's his first and it's his best. It's my personal favorite of the Tarantino films. I think that the character development is fantastic. I love Mr. Orange. I think that the music just completes the film. There's that one chilling scene with the spoiler alert.
We're not gonna hold back on spoilers here. So if you're like, hey, I haven't seen any Tarantino films, but I really want to hear somebody talk. Get out of here. Go away. Get out. Anyway,
when Mr. Blonde tortures the one police officer, just how the music it just works. It's completely beautiful. I think that the plot's well done. It still has that dark humor, which Tarantino obviously loves, and it just works for me completely. I know that it's not your favorite one.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's where we kind of disagree a little bit.
And that's why I really like to start off with Reservoir Dogs, just when it comes to talking about it first, because it's the one that I think it's the dividing point for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the one where people say, this is the kind of Tarantino they like, and it's the one where I think you're right. It's the one that definitely, let's first state, it's a great film to come out of the gate with as a debut movie.
Perfect.
And it's such a great...
I think you said it. You said that you thought it was a great college film.
I still stand by that, yeah. When I first saw... I told you this. When I first saw the movie, I was sitting there... I was just in the same room. I was watching the screen, and I just said to myself, well, that was a really good college movie. Like, I found it was... If that was a college student presenting to me, A+. Give him an A+, send him out, you go do great things, go make some great movies, and he did. But I kind of said to myself, there's some things I had a problem with. And what you said, first of all, is the interrogation scene. Yeah. Fantastic scene. Yeah. I think the juxtaposition, I'm going to use English words. But the juxtaposition...
Sure going that one.
Oh, yeah. But the use of Stuck in the Middle with You, with the interrogation, with the way that Blonde approaches it. Like, he's kind of taunting him in the beginning. He's doing his little dance. The guy's screaming. He turns the camera away. It's a great use of everything. Cinematography, acting from Michael Madsen. Why do I... No, never mind. Michael Madsen. The police officer, I forget his name. But... and the very fact that it just kind of sucks you in. But not just that. The scene right after... where he's walking outside, and we were like, where is he going? And it's quiet, and he's outside, nobody's around. He goes in the trunk, and he pulls out the gas tank.
That's what I absolutely love about Tarantino, just his use of music, because we're just watching Jackie Brown, and they actually have the volume turning up and down the whole time. And if you leave the music's gone. And then when it gets closer to you, it gets louder. It's just a really nice touch.
He knows exactly when to have a lot of music and when not to, and he shows that with this film. And I think this is the problem that I have a little bit with Reservoir Dogs, in that there's some great scenes, like I just said, with the interrogation scene. I'm just going to stay on the good stuff. Mr. Orange's entire sequence, when we see... that Mr. Orange is the police officer, and we find out that how he got involved in the syndicate.
Yeah.
Or involved in the group, and the whole idea of the commode story.
I love
That
that story.
scene, that is a story that takes on a lot of elements to great filmmaking. It shows him rehearsing it, him perfecting it, him using it in the situation, and then it shows the story come to life.
Yeah.
And to the point where it's just so believable and so organic.
Oh,
that it's
fantastic.
It's an amazing way to visually tell a story and use dialogue, and I really like that scene for not just character development, but it's not really character development, it's a false character development, which is such a cool thing.
It's a twist.
My big problem, though, not with that story, but it's later on in the end of the film. Joe, like, it's a shorter film. It's his shortest film that he's ever made, I think, next to Death Proof. And the problem that I have is Joe immediately, he comes in, and he's just like, this guy's the cop. And it's just like, well, how did he figure that out? Like, I kind of get, like, earlier, it's like, when the three criminals, it's Pink, White, and Joe's son. Forget his name.
Just go with Joe's son.
Joe's son, Eddie. I think it's, something Eddie. Nice guy, Eddie.
Nice,
And so they come in, and then it's like, the cop, he tortured the cop.
Yeah.
He explains himself, and he just goes, this cop shoots him. And then Orange makes a story up about how Blonde was going to take the diamonds.
Yeah.
And then Eddie's like, he doesn't believe him because of another great scene where we see the development of Blonde's character, how they're friends, how he lies, and he just, that's a little bit like, oh crap, what's going on?
The reason I love Reservoir Dogs so much is it sets up Tarantino's pattern. It shows you how he does go full circle in every one of his little stories. Every little touch that he has matters.
Yeah.
And we see that again in Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, even Kill Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Just all these little stories that happen, and they all matter, they all connect.
Yeah, and there's a reason for each moment. Like, we know White, when we see White's story, we know White is connected with Joe and their friends. We see Blonde is really close with them. And then all that comes together. My problem is just when Joe says that Orange is, he knows that Orange is a White, he just says, he wasn't the one I was 100% on. And I'm kind of like, what? Why would you add him then? I mean, you believe the story. At least that's what it kind of tells us. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could say it's a misdirect, but at the same time, I'm just like, why would you put in this a plan that's so big and important? Why wouldn't you put someone that's 100%
see, coming from Joe's perspective, I'd say that he was 100% certain when he put them all in. But then as soon as something go wrong, he started double checking everyone and trying to fill in the blanks kind of thing. So then he
when it went wrong.
Yeah, when it went wrong, that's when he started
it's like why he's not around.
Yeah. So he's off in his underground mobster world, and he has to go double check everything, see if all these people's backstories actually match up, and then he's not 100% certain on Orange, and then he finds out what happened to Blonde, who happened to be his friend. So that's why he actually comes there, and that ends up shot.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's one of the, and when I first saw it, I was just kind of like, how did he know? And that can make sense with that. I do like the characters in this film. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that was really bad in the ending. The one thing is what you said with Tarantino with music. He has one slip up with music.
You don't like the line
with
the coconut.
I hate that song at the end. Not in terms of representation, not in terms of what it means, but in terms of just tonal shift. Like, it's kind of, like, also...
Oh, and just switches from something very heavy, one of a very dark scene, and then all of a sudden it's lighting the coconut.
Yeah. I can get that with the whole heaviness of it. My also problem with that, though, is, like, it comes from a moment of just, like, pure empty realization from White. Like, he put so much trust in Orange, and then it's like Orange tells him, I'm kind of like, I don't want to listen to a song that's all about drinks and kind of feeling okay. And then
it was still going with the whole radio station, because the radio never really matches what's happening in life.
Well, yeah, I get that. It's just, it's one of those things where I just kind of say, I mean, it opens with the song that's, like, perfect for this song, for the A Little Green Bag, and I'm just like, it's perfect, but it's one of those things where I can't find a way to defend it. I can't say to myself, I can understand it. It's one of those things, and it left me with that feeling of, it had some problems with it. If an ending ends on a high note, I can look past some problems.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I don't know.
You didn't really like how everyone died either, right? That was.
Well,
Are you better with that one now, or?
No, it wasn't that everyone died. It was the fact that, like, I mean, I've never had a problem with all the characters dying in a film before, but I think it was more along the lines of, the biggest problem I think I had was with certain characters dying. It's kind of like my thing with most films is rewatchability. When I watch a film, because I've watched Reservoir Dogs like 5 times. Yeah. It's like around the third or fourth highest viewed movie I've seen of his. Yeah. So there's something that gets me back to it. But the problem that I have with it is the number of times I watch it, I can just easily just do this. This character is unnecessary. And when I say that, Mr. Brown is unnecessary. Yeah. Mr. Blue is unnecessary. Except for that first watching. You're like, ooh, what do these guys have to do with the story? And once you realize they have really nothing except Brown crashes a car that they had, and for that whole Madonna speech, which I'm not a huge fan of. I know that...
I like the Madonna speech,
Yeah, but here's the thing, and I'm gonna... Oh, people, if anybody's like, kind of hanging on and just be like, what? You hated the Madonna speech? Like, oh, jeez. But Mr. Blue contributes nothing except saying that the waitress was nice and making you think, oh, blue cops?
Well, did you see the cigar he had? That was a nice cigar. No,
cigar man right over here. Okay. But then there was like that whole thing with... It's just... There's...
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. No, yeah. So, okay, I brought up this can of worms now, the Madonna speech. Yeah. This is actually the biggest problem I have with it. It's not the fact that characters die, it's the fact that characters die and you don't know too much about them. I mean,
you don't know a whole lot about Brown, or Blue. The one thing that I think Tarantino could have expanded on was the whole, when they're getting their different names, he could have drawn out a bit more about Mr.
He could have made it funny at first. Like, Brown is like, it sounds like Mr. Shit. I don't want to be Mr. Oh, sorry. I'm going to bleep that out now. It's a family show. He says...
he could have played it out.
And you know what? Kids don't watch this. I'll put a warning into it. It's for kids not to see this. But no, he calls himself Mr. Shit. And I say to myself, that could have been a great... It's funny. And then Mr. Pink is just like, why am I Mr. Pink? It's like, because you're a faggot, all right? And I'm just like, that's funny.
That is funny.
But at the same time, I think to myself, you could have done that, made it funny, and then you could have had that character development where Brown kind of feels like an outcast or something like that. He wants to prove himself or something like that. Or like he's nervous at this whole thing. I don't know.
With it, think of the ad that Tarantino put on it, which is the perfect crime, because nobody knows each other. Yeah. So a few of them have to go unknown because, again, none of these characters actually know each other. They're not allowed to talk about their pasts. They're just there to get the job done, which ends up not happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where...
get it. It kind of annoys me too, but for me, I just look past it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you can look past it, that's more power to you.
It makes it much more enjoyable.
I do say this though, with the Madonna speech, and like just because I really need to address this right now before people get too mad. The Madonna speech, I'm not crazy about after the 4th time I saw it. I loved it when I first saw it.
Okay.
But I don't like it for 2 reasons, and I'll get into this with another film that I'll just mention after this. But it doesn't really build too much on his character, except when you think of like when someone gets really like reading too deep into it. It's like, the Madonna speech is a representation of how he's not respectable to women, and it's like, well, yeah, you can mention that, but we don't see it, so we can't really establish that that's a character thing. It's like, it's kind of like me saying,
if anything, the song. You could say that about the song, not about what he thinks about the song.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, but what I do love right after is Pink's whole speech about tipping.
I live by that rule.
Man. Yeah.
He converted me.
Yeah, he converted you to, and that's how good it is, because it's an actual character moment. It's a moment where you understand where he's coming from, not just in a restaurant, but in life as well. Yeah. And that is something that I find interesting. It's why I think Pink is my favorite character of the bunch.
I agree. Pink is my favorite as well.
And the only other flaw I'll say this, and this is just a nitpick, it's some of the dialogue, like when they're talking about the rat, like when they're discussing it. Okay. A little repetitive, and it seems like a little bit like where I say college film, like there's some kind of, he doesn't exactly know how to direct them to act. In some places, and the way they act is kind of just a little stiff, but that's just a nitpick in me as an actor, so I just say,
I think that should bring us on to the next film.
Well,
which is...
the very quick... Yeah, well,
okay.
actually, yeah. We got a dog now, so we just got to watch out. Make sure the drinks are not on the floor. There's Maggie, everybody. She's going to make a quick cameo into this thing if you can see her. She's adorable. If you can't see her, she's just as adorable. There you go.
There you go.
The quick one I wanted to quickly mention is... quick twice. Is... True Romance. You have not seen True Romance.
I have not.
This is why I wanted to say it. He wrote it. He did not direct it. The only reason I wanted to bring it up is this is why I also think I don't consider Reservoir Dogs his best, and why I'm glad I see that it's not, because when I watch True Romance, I see a movie where it's kind of like somebody saw a Tarantino movie and said, "Oh, I know how to do this," and they add great music. They have interesting side characters. They have kind of good things in it, and they kind of had that same kind of cool factor. But the problem is there's so many missed opportunities in the story itself, and I found it was just... It's one of those movies where I think it's something that I think he needed. I'm glad he made it, because it's one of those things that it didn't do well critically, and it was one of those things where I think it needed to be done so he could kind of look and take a step back and say, okay, let's see what worked for the first one and what didn't work with True Romance, and let's fix it and make Pulp Fiction.
And I think that's your favorite. Is that your favorite one?
That is, it's kind of tied.
Okay.
But I do consider it his best.
Okay.
If we're talking straight screenplay.
Yeah.
If we're talking straight screenplay, this is the... I'm not going to even complain about a lot of things with the screenplay. It's perfect. I watched the movie. I even made notes about this film. I found 5 things I nitpicked and didn't like. And it was like... Yeah, but then there was something that actually I found I didn't mind.
Yeah.
The bullet holes, but then I noticed in this one shot, this is probably just me overanalyzing, but I don't care because I'm looking past the bullet holes. There's a candlelight with fake fire. There's like one is burning and one is not attached to it. I look at that as the sense of belief between Jules and Vincent.
Okay.
So I don't care about the bullet holes continuity thing. Whenever somebody brings that up to me, I just say, I don't care. Because I believe. Holy power.
Just laugh about it. Yeah.
And, but no, when I watched Pulp Fiction again, I said to myself, this movie's great. And, what do you think about Pulp Fiction? I know it's not your favorite, but...
Well, I really enjoy it. It's just, I'm the opposite of most people. I enjoyed the John Travolta part, but I enjoy every other part more. So I like the Bruce Willis part more, and honestly, Harvey Keitel is my favorite character. Just his brief little part where he's smooth and sophisticated.
That's 30 minutes away. I'll be there in 10. 9 minutes and 37 seconds.
Yeah, I just love it. So I know that it was John Travolta's kind of breakout of his slump, which he's done a few times now. But I enjoyed the other parts. I like how they had the one, the samurai sword. I forget the name of the...
Hattori Hanzo?
Thank you. The Hattori Hanzo. They did have the symbol in there. That was a nice prelude to Kill Bill.
Yeah, and I'm not one to really care too much about his extended universe, as long as the films themselves work.
Yeah.
Because that's, again, True Romance, there's a kind of connection with the first one. I didn't care about it, but I do think that sometimes it works as long as the film is great.
Yeah. I thought that the whole sex dungeon thing was really creepy and freaky. It's a tough watch to get through, but second or third time that I watched through it, I went, yeah, no matter how freakish this is, it's a great scene. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And this is actually a fun little fact. This is one of those movies where my mom, I asked her, when can I see Pulp Fiction? She says, you can't see it until you're this age, and you can only see it with your dad. There have only been there's a few times where I've not listened to that rule, but there are a few times where I have, and that's, I'm glad I did that. Like, The Breakfast Club, I didn't watch that until I watched it with my mom. Psycho, I watched the first 5 minutes of that, and she was so mad at me. And Pulp Fiction, I didn't watch this at all. And I'm very glad I did, because when I first saw Pulp Fiction, I was a little bit confused with the whole non-linear structure.
If you don't know what's going on, you just get lost.
And it's also, there's a lot of heavy content. You said with the rape torture scene.
Yeah.
And also just the drug use in it. It's not it's not the most intense drug use I've seen in a movie, but it is very much a plot point, and it's very much focused on. That's another thing that I love about this screenplay. Details. there's a reason why Vincent is a heroin junkie.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why Mia is a coke addict.
So
Without that, there's no tension for them, and there's like I just imagine Tarantino thinking to himself, how do I get this character in trouble?
Yeah.
Oh right, let's make her snort heroin, and not only just heroin, but the madman. Let's get her snort some of that, and then there's just such little things like when they take him to the junkie's house to get her. To stop her from ODing. Yeah. There's a game of Operation and a game of Life stacked on top of each other. I love that. And when Vincent's terrified, he's wearing a Speed Racer shirt under his stoner rags, and he gets up and he's like, I can hear the phone. I can hear it. No, there's so much to this film. It's one of those films where there's so much you can almost not even talk about it. I can't really say. I can only say
we'll have to do this again. And we'll just
as
have
an actual
to focus.
Review.
We'll actually have to focus on Pulp Fiction if we're able to cover everything.
Absolutely, and I think Samuel L. Jackson gives an amazing performance in this. I think this is one of his best.
I think that his best acting in general is when he's Tarantino.
Yeah, Uma Thurman. I'm still convinced is the sexiest female character I've ever seen in a movie. I'm not even joking. When she talks in the microphone, that scene, I'm just like, my God, like this woman is scary. Sexual, and I'm just a little bit. It's a little bit like
it's haunting and intimidating at the same time.
Yeah, you're just like I don't know what to do. Like it's like kind of Vincent. It's like I don't know what to do right now. Just do I leave? Do I stay? Do I don't know. Plan out the rest of my day in the bathroom. You're all right out there, right? You're not looking in my pockets. But no, it's a great ensemble piece of acting. One thing we didn't talk about with Reservoir Dogs too much was the acting. And while it was, I do think stiff at times, still great actors.
Oh, definitely.
Tim Roth in this movie, and what's her name? Oh man, I know her name. Why am I forgetting it? She plays Honey Bunny. I want to just look at it, but I won't. But I'll put a little thing of her name actually in it. But she was just so fantastic in this movie. Like their dynamic was great. I love the whole monologue again. The monologue is like. Why don't we rob a coffee shop? Let's do it.
The acting is so great, and it's a lot smoother than Reservoir Dogs. I think that he actually had a little more of his directing style. Just the whole, when he's getting his wallet back, the whole intimidation scene there. Again, when they're getting washed down. After they blow the one guy's brains out. Well, you gotta have an opinion. I think you think God just came down from heaven and stopped. Boom, and I'm just shit. And that's actually the most violent scene that is in that movie. Yeah, it's not a lot of violence. Tarantino doesn't have a lot of violence in his films, and like there's high body counts, and I mean orange bleeding, the cut off of the ear, that. Kill Bill makes up for most of it. Well, yeah, but everybody says, "Oh, it's overly violent." It's like there's not a lot of people that die, and the only person that dies graphically is Marvin. Yeah, only person. And I love and again when they're cleaning the back of the car, it's like Vincent's in the front, and he's just like kind of saying, "Calm down, Jules. Okay, right now I'm a race car and I'm in the red. Okay, and I'm just saying it's dangerous when you got a race car in the red. You know, I'm ready to blow." Oh, you ready to blow? Yeah. Well, I'm a mushroom cloud laying mother. And I'm just, it's like, and then he's like, and why am I in the back of the car? You're the guy that should be on brain detail. And I'm just like, it's just these little funny moments. And then what I love about it is, in Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, they treat death so casually. Yes. It's so casual. When they're talking about how to torture the people for the bank in Reservoir Dogs, it's like, if he doesn't give you the answer he's trying to be a hero, take his pinky off. Yeah. And he treats it just like, oh yeah, and I just made a breakfast sandwich. Yeah. I'm hungry. Let's go get a taco. I forgot about that scene. That's a fantastic one. And that's just an opening up into the world of complete desensitization. He knows how to talk about the criminal element for sure. And I like how he doesn't, like when he writes characters, they're used to this kind of world, so they're not like all like, oh my god. So they don't spend time on reacting. They spend time on then acting afterwards. Which, if they're not familiar with the world, it would make sense to spend time on. It's just when there are these shows and these people have been doing this for how many years, and then suddenly they develop a conscience. I'm like, please just can we skip these 15 minutes of this person talking to themselves in the mirror, please?
Yeah. There's one really big thing that I want to mention, or two things actually, and that's one other thing that I didn't mention with Reservoir Dogs is that Tarantino did something really great with the crime genre. Yeah. He made them people, really. He made criminals people, and we didn't really see that. We saw it to an extent, I guess, like in The Godfather. We saw them, but they were all business-type people, and they were talking about the business.
And the last time that it's really been seen was The Mobster, which was Humphrey Bogart and stuff like that, but that's completely different type of criminal.
And it's never, but he made them talk about regular stuff. But the problem, I think, also with that in Reservoir Dogs is it's pulp culture references, it's the stuff to be real people. So it's conversations that we have, but also again, then conversations are kind of boring and they never really lead to something. In this movie, Pulp Fiction, they talk about things and they always have something to do with what's going on. Yeah. And it's like subtext. It's like what is the meaning of this conversation? Yeah. Not just what are they talking about. It's what is the reason behind it. And they never tell us. No. Like when they're going towards to get the briefcase from what's his name? Brett. When they're going to his apartment, and they're talking about Mia Wallace. They're talking about how she was in a pilot. They talk about all of that, and then Jules mentions that Antoine messed up, Marcellus messed up a guy named Antoine because he was touching, giving Mia Wallace a foot rub, which is another funny scene. But the whole point of that conversation is it just seems like they're talking about, massage his feet and this. What they're really saying is, Vincent, you got to watch out for when you're taking care of his wife. Yeah. Because if you screw this up, you are going to die. You're in big trouble. And then it's like more on edge for when he meets Mia. Yeah. And then there's all...
and then when she's ODing, that's... Exactly.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
You're like,
you're scared for the guy.
Yeah, and I think if you like John Travolta or not, he did have some pretty good charisma.
Oh, at least he sure did
in this. So
he was great.
I like him in this.
Just, I like Bruce Willis more.
No, yeah, and you know what? That's the one last thing I really want to talk about. Bruce Willis. One thing that I will say I did have an issue with was when he's driving in the taxi cab. The background's kind of one of those like old noir kind of thing. Yeah. That's just I don't know. There's probably a reason, but I don't like that. But anyway. The whole taxi scene, I get it. Yeah. It's one of those things that just, but it doesn't make me dislike the film. No. It works for the film. Yeah. What I love, though, is the gold watch scene, and I think this is something that not enough people kind of see. And this is just where I'm going to be analyzing. Okay. Where the gold watch scene, it was an army relic. Like, it's basically passed down to soldiers in that family bloodline to go to war. And Butch is given to him from a man who was in the Vietnam prison camp with his father. He died of dysentery. Give him the watch, and then he gives the watch to him in a very noble fashion, in a very straight way, in like he's being honest with him. Yeah. And then Butch wakes up and he's a boxer. Now tell me this: Butch is making a deal to throw the match with an underground criminal, warlord or kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He then cons the man and beats the other boxer to death. He's planned to take more money to go off, and then he finds out he doesn't have the watch from his girlfriend. She's also very good in this movie. And then he verbally attacks her, throws stuff, scares her, then goes to his apartment, kills Vincent. Yeah. Then he starts driving away. He hits Marcellus with a car when he's going for donuts. And then he runs off, and he's about to shoot him in a pawn shop. What has he done to deserve the watch?
That's the whole thing. He hasn't.
He hasn't done a single thing until Marcellus is being attacked. And he has that choice where he could leave.
Or he could actually, And this is what makes the scene quite brilliant. Because we were actually talking about this just earlier. The difference between heroes and villains. Yeah. And he hasn't been a hero yet. So he gets that drive where, who knows, maybe it's his ancestors coming back. You don't really get insight to his mind. You just know that he gets the drive to do something good, finally. Mm-hmm. And he is rewarded. He finally earns his watch, and he earns his life.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great theme in this entire film. Like, it's all the idea of people finding those chances to find decency in an indecent life. These are bad people.
They are.
And Vincent is the one person, again, who, like, says, I'm just going to keep living this life.
Yeah,
and he's
content
punished.
with the life he is.
And everyone else is at least saved or spared to try and clean themselves up in life, I think. And Marcellus, at the same time, I think he comes out a different man after the experience. And my brother hates that scene, and my mom, it's the reason she won't see it again.
It's a tough scene,
but I think there's a reason for it. And that's why...
Give it a metaphor. I mean, he was finally the one who's screwed in the ass.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, no, I think it's why I love it so much and why I think it's such a great film. And why I think a lot of people... I don't think enough people can defend this movie when they talk about Pulp Fiction. Again, we gotta make a video for just talking about the bits of this.
We spent a good 10, 15 minutes just on Pulp Fiction.
So I think this is a good time to move it to Jackie Brown.
I think so.
We just saw that movie again because you said when we talked about this... Yeah. This was kind of the one on your list of... I
wasn't sure. It was one of my first Tarantino movies. It was quite different from Reservoir Dogs, which was one of the first ones I saw. I think I watched this one after Inglorious Bastards 2. Mm-hmm. So, completely different feel. It's back in the crime genre. And I just don't think I was ready to watch it.
No, yeah, I understand. And you know what? This was the last one I saw of his.
Right.
It was the last one. Once I got the box set, I'm going to show it off. Now. Box set. I got the box set. It was the last of his movies that I got to see. And... I gotta say, when I first saw it, I was impressed.
Yeah.
And in terms of thinking of it in chronological order, Jackie Brown is a great movie to come out with right after Pulp Fiction, like 3 years later. And Tarantino said in an interview with, I think it was Charlie Rose, or no, it was a different guy, and he said, I knew I was put on this earth for a reason, and I knew I wasn't going to be taken off of this earth until I had fulfilled that reason. Once I made Pulp Fiction, I started looking over my shoulder a little bit more because I wasn't sure if I was done, if that was the one movie. So even he knew that Pulp Fiction was good, but then when he made Jackie Brown, I think that was the best thing because it changed two things. It changed how he was going to be doing the crime genre. And it changed how he was going to, what kind of films he was going to attack because he was getting more money now. Because he was a little bit more, like, people were starting to notice him. He just won an Oscar for screenwriting. And... this was the movie, I think, that established that he was going to be someone that tackled different genres of films, of styles of film that were kind of lost.
Or he could do the same style in different ways. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he did the crime genre in three complete different ways.
Yeah.
Because the first one is professionals just doing a job. Mm-hmm. The second one, Pulp Fiction, is you're looking for vindication, you're looking for redemption. How do I get out? Mm-hmm. And then Jackie Brown is kind of that same feel of the whole, how do I get out? But at the same time, it's more, everyone's working for their own purpose.
Yeah. And there's definitely a reason for everyone to be involved in this. Like, we established that. I mean, what I love about this movie, though, is it's not about the event itself. The events that occur, they happen pretty fast. They do. All about the build-up to those. Mm-hmm. It's a slow movie. I will. It's quick in the fact that the dialogue exchanges are very, very good and
they're intense.
Focused.
Yeah.
But they are. It is his slower movie. It's not his longest, but it is a movie that I think even good like Tarantino fans can have a problem with just saying to themselves, "I'm going to sit down and watch Jackie Brown today," because it's a movie you have to listen to, and it's not one that's not. It's not as iconic.
It's not not really action driven either. Mm-hmm. There are a few key events, but those happen more towards the end of the movie.
I forgot actually how this movie ended with the death of with how Ordell dies. I was like, I forgot how he died, and when I saw it, I was just like, oh wow, that was kind of fast.
It was he's gone.
But I don't think that makes it a bad movie. I
doesn't.
Think
that's very realistic.
I think it's very underrated. I think this is next to like the Hateful Eight. I think this is his most underrated film because it's like a 7.3, I think, on IMDb or something.
It should be higher.
It should be.
I mean, the first half hour of the movie, which you said right off, is just dedicated to Ordell's business, getting the feel for what he does and how he does everything.
Mm-hmm. I will say that Ordell isn't a great, isn't as strong a villain as most things, or an antagonist. But yeah, continue.
Well, he doesn't need to be. He's just there as a figure. People are still threatened by him. He's still doing his business. what I like about it is you never meet Mr. Walker. You just there's this shadowy figure in the background who's never touched. Even at the end of the movie, you're like, well, is she safe? Because did Ordell tell Walker? Walker hung up, but you don't know. There's still it could continue. We have no idea.
Yeah. That's actually something I didn't consider that. That's actually, and it kind of makes sense why she's driving off in kind of a melancholy state. It's kind of the same thing. I guess it's also like she doesn't want to leave Bondsman. I mean, it's kind of a sad kind of departing for
Max Cherry.
Max Cherry, there you go.
Yeah. He's stuck in his honest job. He won't take more than his fee, and she just conned a con man.
Yeah, I think she definitely wants that chance to be like she's got kind of a bad situation. Like she doesn't get paid a lot. She doesn't have much, so she wants that chance. But at the same time, she wants to be
with a decent guy
and in a decent life. And I think it's kind of one of those moments where you're like, maybe it was too far for her, or she's not going to be able to reach that.
We don't know. I'm a hopeless romantic.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, you.
Oh, I know. So I can see her kind of going full circle. She needs to go out and venture the world a little bit because she never had that chance in her youth. So she needs to go explore the world, but she'll come back.
Yeah, I think Pam Grier does a really great job.
She does a great job.
I always forget, like she's a really great actress, and I think she does such amazing work in this movie.
Both of the for her character, Jackie Brown, and for Max Cherry, both of the characters. What I love about them is the subtleties to them. Because it's just small facial changes between when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're scared even.
Yeah, I think I forget the actor's name again, put it in, but he definitely deserved a nomination for this movie. And
he did a great job.
And you're right, it's a very subtle performance, and I that's where I really respected the subtleties in a film. I will say what I really love is how minor characters in this movie are given a lot. Like Lewis especially, because Robert De Niro. I really want to see Robert Downey Jr. in a Tarantino movie. Well, kind of won't get into the other one, but anyway. But Robert De Niro asked a lot of questions of DiCaprio about how he wanted to address this character, and Tarantino was like, "Oh, great," because he doesn't approach this character as a one-note character, and I was a little nervous because I knew how it ended with him, and I was a little like, how did that happen? When it happens, I have no problem with it, because it makes a lot of sense.
It does. Well, and we were even talking about this earlier, because when they're in the car before, you brought up the point that he's a professional, he wants to get the job done. And
from a different life, he's older,
he's older, and then I said, also, she's blurring the music, and he hates dancing, that's why he hates dancing, he hates the noise. So she's pissing him off in two ways.
Yeah, and there's also that scene where he's sitting down and letting Simone do her show. Yeah. So there's a time and a place, I think, for those moments. Yeah. When he's with Ordell, he's all business. Or he's focusing on that. When
he also saw the dead guy.
Yeah, exactly. So he knows what's at stake, and when he's just like kind of rocking back and forth, he's enjoying himself and having those moments. But he separates those. And Melody doesn't do that. Like, she doesn't
getting high at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. She's from a different era. She's kind of like from the surfer girl kind of thing, that attitude, and she doesn't address the work as important because she just thinks they're both slackers. But they do a lot of tough work. Like, he does a lot of stuff. Ordell and Lewis went to prison, and it's a hard job to be working. It's like criminal life is not an easy job.
Ordell made $500,000 selling guns. That's not half bad.
It's kind of like saying, it's like, I know it's a bad rep, but you can't
immoral or not, completely out of the question. Yeah. He's making money.
Exactly. And, when someone's making money, you can't fault them for much. Well, I guess you can. I mean, I'm not going to say what criminals do is totally warranted. Don't do crimes, kids.
Stay in school, get good grades, get a well-paying job, be a lawyer, doctor.
If you get screwed like you did with Jackie Brown at 45, then we can talk about maybe doing something, swindling some drugs, some gun dealers. But there was a lot in Jackie Brown I was glad to see. I think it's a really great film to come out of the gate again after Pulp Fiction. That's not an easy feat.
That had to be another high bar, and I think that.
And it didn't stop him from making movies.
No. I think that if he had put Kill Bill out after Pulp Fiction, it would have scored lower. Anything the next movie after Pulp Fiction was going to score lower than it should have, no matter what it was.
Yeah. I mean, the internet wasn't as huge as it was nowadays, but I mean, at the same time, word of mouth was going to definitely say, and they were like, "Oh, it wasn't Pulp Fiction," and that's a terrible thing. Because then I think people were like coming out of Pulp Fiction saying, "Well, that wasn't Reservoir Dogs, but I liked it." So
you can't do that with any of these movies. They're all iconic in their own way.
They are. And speaking now of iconic, Kill Bill. We'll talk about both ones right through here.
The body count goes way up in these ones.
Man, like Jackie Brown, I think 4 people die.
Yeah.
It's Ordell, Lewis, Melody, and the guy in the trunk, I think, was Chris Tucker. Shout out to Chris Tucker. And then this movie, wow, when I watched it again recently, it opens in a really kind of scary way.
Yeah.
She's on the ground, teeth kicked in, blood on her face, in a bride's veil.
And gives you so much sympathy for her right off the bat. Brilliant move there. And then, while we're on the subject of violence right now, that black and white scene, oh my, that was one of the best action scenes that I've ever seen.
Anything that has to do with an eyeball, I just go, oh no. Oh, jeez. I gotta shake off a little bit with this. So
a masterpiece.
How are we gonna talk about this? Because it's tough. It opens really well with her on the ground, and then great music with Bang Bang. I was 5 and he was 6, and it's like such a great little like kind of tragedy, and it goes right into an amazing fight scene between her and
Viper, isn't it?
It must be Viper. I'm gonna put a description for the fake character's name.
Yeah.
But the target, and that's such a great scene, and it's like, and then she's got a kid that comes in.
I love the cereal box.
Oh,
Kaboom
man.
cereal.
When they're, like, discussing, they're going to have a knife fight. And it's like, oh, yeah, here we go. And then it's, like, really funny.
Yeah.
Really funny. Really funny. And then it's one of those things where it's, again, where you have to focus on the stuff that's going on around.
Details,
And it's when a director does that, they get you to pay attention to everything around them and not just what they're saying.
They don't give you a chance to not focus on the movie. You're just drawn in from the beginning.
A good director will make you pay attention to everything that's going on around them. There's some really great films where everything in the background is what's to be focused on.
Usually, I don't like flashbacks either. So when it already said that she had killed, I'm blanking right now.
It's Oreni Shi.
Oh, thank you.
She's the one person I kind of really remember in the first film in terms of the target.
Just as soon I was like, oh, this is going to suck, and then I completely forgot about that. I was like, is she going to make it?
Yeah.
And just, you forget about it, and then you're like, oh, and now that makes more sense.
It doesn't cheat. It's like, we know she's going to make it, but, first, we don't go to their fight. We go to her in the hospital with, I forget, Mountain Snake, where she's about to go and inject her. And...
Twisted Nerve is the whistle riff there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's...
Okay.
There you are.
Twisted Nerve, ladies and gentlemen.
I had that one stuck in my head for 2 weeks. Funny story, I went to my university drama class, and I started whistling that, and then the whole class got infected.
Did they know what it was from, or did they just start whistling?
Half of them did, and the other half were just mad, because now they got this stuck in their head.
Oh, that's actually kind of funny. Oh, wow. And that's a great setup too, like with the whole Buck, and it's like when she drives up in the front, she's got the car, it's Pussy Wagon. I'm just like, what? Why? And then all of a sudden you see, okay, and it's a again good thing with side characters. You know about these people.
Yeah.
She takes the car, and I love the flashback. I saw in an interview, or when he went to Comic-Con, Tarantino and the people for Hateful Eight, a young girl came up and asked. She's obviously an anime fan. She loves the style of the animation that was done for Kill Bill. I do too. And I'm not an anime fan.
Wow. If that doesn't break your heart too.
Yeah.
Just...
Again, it makes you care about these people that she has to kill and understand where they're coming from.
You understand the villains. It's not the classic action hero where it's like, oh, I'm good guy, go kill bad guy. It's, wow, I kind of feel sorry that this person died this way.
But then and then it gets to the point where it's not about what a person, like, where they come from that matters. No. It's a matter of fact of what they did. And that is what drives this whole revenge thing. If it's easy for somebody to say, oh, but she was just, her parents were killed right in front of her, and then she had to turn into a child prostitute to...
It's not an excuse.
It's not an excuse to...
It might give you some sympathy, and that's completely human, but that doesn't justify what they did with
It does make it impressive, though. It does. When you pay attention to how the character of O-Ren gets her power, and she's, like, the only female... Japanese-American person on their council, and the guy speaks out and...
I love that scene.
Cuts off his head, and just...
It just shows it off,
Oh, man.
But and just... The whole thing with this are there 4 individuals, or the women there, are all messed up in different ways. And they all could have turned out differently, but they all become assassins, and they just become murderers.
And... it really sets up that this is a really good, really personal vendetta about this entire movie. And when the whole Crazy 88 scene, what you were talking about, comes up,
love that action
it makes it one of the most interesting and impressive fights. And you're right, you do forget that she won this.
Yeah.
And when she goes to even Hattori Hanzo to get the sword, it's such an amazing scene where it's a matter of respect and interest and humor. And it's like you do feel the weight of this situation. It's more of like you're understanding how much this is going to affect these people. Like Hattori Hanzo took a vow never to do this again. And it's one of those things where when you think about it, it's like this is big, and this is not just a simple I'm gonna kill everybody. Like that's what it kind of sets up with the whole house thing. But even then, the little girl, when she kills her mom, she says, "If you want revenge, I will see you later down the road." And she knows that this is going to affect.
She completely understands,
and then the whole fight happens, and and when it happens, and even when she cuts off her head, I'm not like, oh my god, like I'm not laughing. I'm just like,
you're like, that was intense.
Yeah, and it was sharp. And she even says like, it's like that was a Hattori Hanzo sword, and she collapses, and I love the use also of silence in that movie, and the use of that water drip thing to indicate blood. I'm like, oh. It's a haunting action movie. One of the best.
What I loved about Volume 2 then is it was a completely different feel from the first one, because the first one was, again, that whole revenge drive. Let's get in and kill everyone. And then everything goes wrong. I mean, the guy doesn't match her with swords. He uses a beanbag shotgun.
Salt rock. Rock salt. Yeah.
Rock salt, right? And just buries her alive.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through backstory, and then you find out more.
A really good backstory that I didn't think I wanted to learn about was how she learned the punch. I'm like,
that was a great one. Actually, I watched the movie where Tarantino got that. There's a whole movie where it was, I'm not sure what punch, but
3-inch punch.
Yeah, it was the 3-inch punch, and it's just one guy doing that for like half an hour. Wow. It got a little painful.
Yeah, I can just imagine though. The ideas that are... This is a very slower film. It's pretty much just as violent, but it's much more violent in terms of its suggestions, in terms of what it brings up, and it's a lot more thought-provoking than the first one was, which was still pretty good. I will say this. Well, I gave the second one a little bit too much credit when I first saw it. I said, oh, but it's so much better than the first one. I saw it opens the exact same way. It opens up with the past of the bride scene, and then it opens up again with her actually telling us that she killed Buck and Ellie Driver, and it's like, I'm now on my way to go kill Bill. It's kind of like you're sitting there, you're like,
oh, really?
It does. It's like, did you see it?
Yeah.
No, so it's just kind of like, oh,
that's
that was your reaction.
Yeah.
I thought that was you. Like, wait, I didn't remember that because I forgot. No. I'm like, oh right, she did tell us.
Yeah.
So, wait, is there going to be any tension at all? And there still is!
Yeah.
There still is tension throughout the entire part.
The whole coffin scene. Just, how intense was that?
Yeah. And I actually felt sorry for Bud, because I thought that Bud was kind of it seems like he just kind of threw it all away, like the whole assassin life, and kind of became a degenerate.
He just became so cynical, and so he gave up on life, and it showed, and he's like, oh, we deserve to die. Let's just end it now, kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a good little speech. It was a good moment. That girl deserves her revenge, and we deserve to die. But what I think was even bigger is the fact that he even told his brother that he pawned his Hattori Hanzo sword, and he doesn't.
He doesn't.
He just hides it, and it's one of those things where he wants to forget that life.
Well, and he wants to hurt his brother.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He does care about him, but he doesn't... there's something that broke off between the two of them. And what's really interesting with the whole Ellie Driver scene when she has the Black Mamba in the room, and it kills Bud, and it's like, it shows us how evil she is, too. I think she's the real villain of this movie.
Oh, she is. Well, because when you finally meet Bill, you're like, oh, he's not a terrible guy.
Not a terrible person. I mean, he's done terrible things, sure.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Then, but when she even mentions, like, how she killed
her trainer.
Ming Pai, or...
Yeah.
Darn it.
We're so horrible on
it is. There it is.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But no, when she reveals that, I'm just like, oh, you
That's...
better. And how does she beat her? By ripping her other eye out.
Which makes
no black and white shift, and she's just like screaming and that made me laugh. I laughed so hard.
Because when bad things happen to bad people, it makes you feel good.
Yeah, you only gotta hang mean bastards. I'm jumping ahead too far. But no, and then when in the end of the first one, when you reveal that her daughter is still alive, it's kind of a big reveal. But even when you reveal her real name, it's kind of like, wow, it's still kind of big. I mean, it's not one of those things I kind of forgot was such a huge deal, but it still is. When she goes and she's got her gun out and she goes in, this is where I say to myself, Uma Thurman gives one of the greatest not just female leading performances, one of the greatest performances in an action movie, in any movie ever. That stare-off she has with her daughter, when her daughter's got the gun up, I'm kind of scared that she's going to actually accidentally shoot her daughter. Yeah. But I know she won't, but like there's a moment between those two.
Wow, that was... What I think was a great way to end the movie was just, not to end the movie, but end the action in the movie, was how Bill was just ready and willing to accept.
He does kind of fight her off a bit, but when she does the move, there's a moment where he says, you know what, she deserves this.
Yeah. And you're like, again, he's done horrible things, but he's not always a terrible person.
There's no satisfaction I found with this. And when I was a kid and I saw the DVD lying around of Kill Bill, I'm like, I imagine like this guy in the Texas hat, and he's just a bad guy. He's got guns, and he's like, we're gonna be like shooting down people. And I was so surprised with so much about this movie. It was the biggest shock of how good a movie, and I think of how good an action movie should be.
What I really liked about just how he died was it seemed peaceful and tranquil, which was the perfect end because you didn't want her thirsting for vengeance anymore. It was just finally someone who was willing to give her what was hers, and took it with grace and just went out.
Yeah, and even when the truth serum scene is a really heartbreaking scene too, because it's kind of like you learn so much about what she had to give up and what she wanted to escape from, and it's the moment where I do find that whole Bill being evil thing is like, it's like he's very selfish, but you know, at the same time,
and he's done horrible
she's
things.
just as, but in a different way, and
she might be able to get away with it.
Yeah, and she never thought she could, but she thought she at least wanted to try, and she wanted to have her child. And when it ends with them driving off, and it like names all the names of everyone, and it shows her, it says Beatrix Kiddo, a.k.a. the bride, a.k.a. Black Mamba, a.k.a. mommy. That gets me, because I think whenever anything that has to do with parents and family ties is really a tough thing to get done, and I think it's
like, what kind of parent will she be?
Exactly. And I really, if anybody makes a sequel or makes a spin-off, I do want there to be a spin-off of that young black girl that was, her mom died, and I do want that to maybe be a little thing of its own. I don't need it, but I think that would be a really interesting development.
Yeah.
And it's been a few years now that it could happen, and like have, and then maybe have Uma's, and then it asks the question, where does the line end? Yeah. Where does it stop? Where we decide to stop killing people that have wronged us? Yeah.
Speaking of stop, this is a stretch, but
are we talking about a stop sign and cars?
Yes, cars. As
Whoa!
Death Proof.
Death Proof. Whoa!
I think is actually his most underrated. Did I break you a little bit?
Dude, not really, but I'm just kind of just saying to myself, well, how would we bring it into Death Proof? Stop.
Yeah.
Okay. Underrated, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because Kurt Russell in there, his dialogue, so well written, and people did not give enough credit because it was made as a grindhouse production.
It was a movie that I think it's his most experimental. It was when Robert Rodriguez and him came up with this idea, they had a great amount of respect for the grindhouse cinema. I don't think it's a great piece. Like, I'm not going to just say to myself when I'm just, like, I'm crying at night, I just woke up from a nightmare, it's like, Liam, what is it? Oh, I just dreamt that the grindhouse was being destroyed in the cinema history. I'm just like, I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, this is where the respect of genres come in. Like, even one thing we haven't even talked about is costumes, like with whole Uma Thurman's jumpsuit. That's straight up from I forget what the movie is, but it's
he just takes iconic suits, iconic costumes from people, and puts them on his characters to
makes
kind of
them even
more.
Yeah. That's the best sense of homaging, I think. Yeah. It's not copying. It's such a great...
Yeah, it's just...
And Death Proof, I think, is so good because it's kind of like... It opens up like that movie, like even the title that's kind of coming up first, like Lightning Rod or something. Yeah. And then Death Proof comes on. It's like, what? It's a movie that keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
And
what I really liked about it was, like how Jackie Brown started off with a half hour of build-up for Ordell's operation. It starts off with... I forget...
it's basically half the movie.
Yeah, it's basically half the movie, how he sets up targets and then kills them.
Yeah. And I actually like... This is actually, for a while, I kind of talked myself into making this my favorite. One of my favorites, because...
But you can.
This movie opens up so well, but not just that, it has some really good exchange from some very stereotypical characters that you expect in a slasher film, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Then they go to a bar and they talk and everything. And even Tarantino has said this isn't his best film. I actually think this is a really good film. I think he underrates this because there's something really good about this, because at one point it's just like a regular slasher film. Yeah. And he makes Kurt Russell in that film an amazing villain and horrifying character. And the whole build-up again with the whole like, I wasn't lying, honey. This car is 100% death-proof. Only get the benefit of it, honey. You really gotta be sitting in my seat. That just pure loathing of these kinds of people in his eyes and his voice. So
it's
great. And the music again, like that whole like dance sequence, like the lap dance scene. I actually find that's one of my favorite songs, and it comes on in my work. It's blues music, and I'm like, oh yes, let's bring it home with this.
Only part of the movie I did not like was how none of the second cast of females died. I did not find that realistic enough for a Tarantino movie.
But you know what I like about that, and where I actually think that's a good thing.
It feels like a B movie. It feels grindhouse.
Yeah, but what I actually like about that more is these are characters that establish themselves as being a lot better than those girls. Yeah. Like Zoe Bell, who's actually the stunt double for Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. Like she's the New Zealand.
That I did not know.
Yeah, that's and then he taught her actually how to act a little bit and not just be a stunt person. And she has so much respect for him for that. But she's actually in a lot of his movies. Like she's in Death Proof.
Well, he does that a lot.
And that's why the reason I think she has her is because they actually did those stunts on the car.
Yeah.
And that's impressive. Like that is just for how much they actually did in that movie. Yeah. So much work is put into this, and
that's
it's definitely
what my respect for Bond movies is, because they don't like CGI.
Well, in the past they didn't
do now,
as much.
But
not now. It's like, remember what's the guy's name? Brosnan. His last movie was awful. Yeah. Anyway, but we don't talk. But no, but it seems like this whole I don't like cars that much. I'm not a huge car person, but when someone has such much like dedication, like in like a Fury Road or any of the Mad Max movies,
building their own vehicles,
when they will like put so much dedication into something that is so real and into something that's so powerful, it's terrifying and it's really impressive.
That's what was great about Death Proof.
And I don't mind the fact that they don't die, because I actually love the scene. My problem is just kind of how it ends with the whole grindhouse like pausing and breaking. I get kind of that, but it seemed like the second half was kind of stepping away from that grindhouse style, with a few exceptions.
A little bit, yeah.
Like they had the break of the film when he's driving to chase them. It's like, oh no, is this kind of the same thing that happened before? But it kind of felt like it didn't need to be there. I'm so happy. Like how they kick his ass is so satisfying for them. But it's just one of those things where it just kind of ends afterwards. And just kind of like, it could have been a little bit.
Yeah. And this is, my dad and I usually agree, but this is the one time when we don't, because he didn't see Kurt Russell's character being a coward like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I instantly thought of the villain from Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And just how as soon as he got stuck with the knife, he freaked out, and then he fell down the whole hill. Yeah, and how he just fell down the whole hill, and just... So I think that was realistic in how he freaked out and did let... Essentially, he let the women beat him up.
Plus, think about how he kills people. He kills them with a supercar. Yeah. And he doesn't, even get his hands dirty. He's a coward. And even when they're chasing him, he's like, oh, you know what? Just leave me alone. He's like, so long, ladies, and he gets shot. I think he deserves to die like a wuss, because he is not a good person. I don't care if a good person goes out like or a bad person goes out like a wuss. They deserved it if they were that bad. It's kind of like, I'm not going to make the shift yet, but Inglorious Bastards, how that ends. Yeah. I like how he's screaming in the end. It's like, that's the one satisfaction. Mm-hmm. He's feeling pain. Yeah. But the last thing I do want to say about this, it's not a movie that I can really say too much about.
It's just one of his shorter ones.
It's one of his shortest ones, yeah. But there's a lot that you can say about the style if you knew Grindhouse. I don't. But what I do love about this movie is, with what you said, the establishment of the first half. Yeah. And then when the girls are the ladies are having their conversation about cars and about finding that car that they were looking for in the bar, and it's doing that circle, and you see Noah pointed this out to me. He's in the background. I'm like, oh, but then he leaves, I think, before they get into that really conversation. So I think he misses some of their whole car spiel about how they're so into that. So it's kind of like one of those moments where it's like, oh, he doesn't know. No. And so that kind of sets him up for a little bit of a... But that's such a cool... Again, focusing on the background.
Well, he's creepy.
Yeah. Now, this is something we haven't talked about. I do want to bring it up. Yeah. Is the Tarantino cameos, just quickly. What do you think about the Tarantino's cameos thus far in terms of the films? Like, I think he's in Reservoir Dogs. We talked about that. Pulp Fiction.
Loved it.
Great. Yeah. Just great. I don't think he was in Jackie Brown. He wasn't in Kill Bill, to my knowledge. No. And then this one, and he's like the bartender, and he's like, "Is that a tasty beverage or is that a tasty beverage?" I like how he says beverage too in the script. Yeah. But the reason I just bring it up is because in a few films here, I definitely want to talk about the. Yeah. But if I'm being honest about Death Proof, it is not his best. But it should definitely be acknowledged more
credit.
And at least appreciate. Like, people should appreciate this.
It is his most underrated, in my opinion. Yeah.
I think just as a film itself, there's a lot. I mean, you could say it's style over substance, but it's the Grindhouse. Yeah. And apparently, all I know about the Grindhouse is that it was style over substance. Yeah. And I don't mind that in this film.
And you're not supposed to.
Speaking of not minding, my turn to really suck at this. I don't mind when a movie opens with a fairy tale book opening in Nazi-occupied Germany. No. How was that? How was that?
Not bad. It's pretty good.
No, it was terrible. Don't save me from that.
No, Inglorious Bastards is a fantastic movie. I think that it's also his... I'm not sure quite how to say this. It's his most... almost Academy-like. It's his most in line with other directors kind of thing. He takes it looks higher budget than the rest of his movies. Because the rest he films in certain styles and manners, and this one actually felt like a Hollywood movie.
This is the movie, I think, after like Kill Bill, that one had a lot of budget for it, but when this was the first one I ever saw. I saw this in grade 9 for my film study school, and the reason I saw it is because I knew we owned it, and I knew that it was like, ooh, Tarantino's really violent. Yeah. So I made an excuse and said, my teacher wants me to see a Tarantino movie. Yeah. Now I get to see a Tarantino movie. You can't say anything about it. Yeah. When I first saw this movie, I hate myself when I was back in grade 9 because I said I liked it. I don't like the subtitles.
Oh, yeah.
I just kind of look down at the ground now. This is movie. The subtitles have a point.
Yeah, they do, because that first scene when they're jumping around between 3 languages, like, wow. And
when this movie, this has the second best movie opening in my opinion, in just terms of writing, everything, cinematography, performances. This is, I think, Christoph Waltz, when he was in this movie, he didn't play it as a Nazi. Like, everybody in interviews is saying, you're playing this evil Nazi. You're playing this evil Nazi. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm playing a detective.
Yeah.
Who just happens to be a German soldier. Yeah. Yes. And that's what makes it so good.
You can even tell that he doesn't like his nickname.
Actually, he says he likes it in the beginning. Yeah. It's kind of like a little bit like a Joker kind of thing, or like a Heath Ledger Joker, where he says, I love my unofficial title. And then later he's like, it's just the name that's stuck. Like
he's how that worked for me is, I think that when he's on the job, he says he likes it to be more intimidating, and so that he can get the information out of people faster.
Like a little pompous kind of one-upmanship on them. Yeah.
And you could tell that kind of helped break down the farmer there.
Yeah, and
just as soon as he's like, oh, I am dealing with a professional. Then later on, he's like, I'm just doing my job.
This is another movie that I think we could definitely just sit here and analyze forever.
We could do this for an hour.
We can do this, every single one of his films, with, I think, the exception of Death Proof, just, again, because it's so short, and there's, once you kind of get past just, like, the camera is a little grainy. I don't mean to dismiss Death Proof, but once you get past some of that, it is a movie that you don't need so much time dedicated. This is a movie you could break down just every scene for like an hour. Mm-hmm. The opening alone, with like, we did that in class. For 2 classes, we broke down that scene. Yeah. And that was high school, so like 80-minute classes. Mm-hmm. So we broke down like what the lighting means on certain parts. Why does he drink milk? We talked about that for 20 minutes about why he drinks milk. And I'm just kind of saying to myself, you know, I just kind of wish movies would just have a person drink milk because they want milk. I wish, but again, that's what makes a movie so great.
I have to say, the acting's amazing. The scenes are amazing. Both storylines. I just wish that we saw more of the Bastards.
And you know what? I would agree with you if not for the fact that everyone in this movie is a bastard. That's why I think it's called that. It's not just because there were 2 movies. There's Inglorious Bastards, I think, in the 70s, and then there's this one that he made, and I think that one in the 70s was more with the Bastards, like just the group that calls himself that.
Well, all I wanted to see was I know we got to see them shoot up a few cars and everything and be scary. I just wanted to see them take down like a small Nazi camp. I wanted to see how the Bear Jew got his nickname, scaring people, right?
I do. Here's and I'll jump onto that because there's a lot I do want to talk about with this, but there's definitely, I have a problem not with the Bastards, but I have a problem with just the fact that some of them are given more dedication to time, like Hugo Stiglitz. We learn a little bit about him through a flashback, and I'm kind of like, okay,
it's a good flashback.
It was, but at the same time, where's the flashback for Aldo? Where's the flashback for the little man? There's so many guys, and then they just kind of disappear. I guess we could say they got either like taken out like for Purple Hearts or got killed.
They're the guys who blew up, and they're the guy. There's little guy and Brad Pitt, and they're both taking the Nazis across the border. And I'm like, well, the other ones got shot at the bar, but there's still more.
And there's so much dedication in this movie to paying attention to every other character. Like we need to be on top of where Shoshana is. She's the one with the theater. Yeah. We have to know where her camera operator is as well. We have to know where Lambda is. We have to know where
Jew Hunter.
The Jew. That's Lambda. Yeah.
Lambda. Sorry, my bad.
Lambda. But we also have to know where. What's his name? The guy, the director of the film. We have to know where. Frederick Zoller is. We have to know where all of these characters are, and we have to know everything about them. And then with the Bastards, it just doesn't. It's kind of like they can go disappear. I'm just kind of that's one thing where I'm just like.
I would have liked to see more of them because they're really enjoyable and fun whenever you see them. It's just.
But at the same time, you're right when you say this is a Hollywood film in terms of there's so much in the background for this. Like the set design is amazing. The costumes are fantastic. The biggest thing that I find more impressive in when I watch like special features is the posters. Yeah, those are authentic movie posters that they have set up. They get all the nitrate film on this. Yeah. My gosh, this movie was just so
it's a fantastic
big
movie.
and grand. And what's really great about this is Christoph Waltz deserved the Oscar for supporting actor. One of the best performances again by an actor. But Brad Pitt is so funny in this role.
Buongiorno.
Grazie. It's like all that. My name is Lieutenant Aldo Rain. It's like iconic and just so awesome in that whole like scene under the bridge where the bear Jew comes out. Yeah, like, it's a moment where it's like there's that glory trumpet. Yeah, oblige him. Yeah, it's so like good. You get that for killing Jews for bravery, and there's this like huge grandness, and he's like getting ready to swing, and once he hits them, that grand music goes out, and he's just butchering this German,
beating him up.
And he's just like swearing up a storm, and it's like
Brad Pitt ends the movie perfectly. I think that may just be my masterpiece.
And I would agree. This is a movie that is so above and beyond itself, with just a few things, and it's just so great in terms of, again, with a scene that's I think even better than the opening, near close to the beginning, is that bar scene. Just the setup when there's he didn't say the rendezvous was going to be in a goddamn basement, and it's like, I didn't pick the rendezvous. She picked it herself. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of problems when you're going down to a basement. Number one is you're fighting in a basement. And I'm just like, it's like, these little things are just things that, you think it's just bickering and you don't really understand it. And then the setup when they go in.
And then you take it from a captain's perspective. You're like, I would not like putting my man in the basement.
And then when the whole scene is so full of tension because there's more Germans than they expect.
And then he does.
And even if you just seen it for the first time, you're like, wait, what just happened? And all of a sudden, there's a gun. Then there's another gun. And then there's a guy putting a gun on a guy's testicles. And it's like, oh boy, if this is going to be the end, I hope you don't mind if I go out speaking to kings. And he's like, there's a special ring in hell for people who waste good scotch. I gotta say, damn good stuff, sir. Now about this pickle that we find ourselves in, I guess there's only one thing to do. And what is that? Stiglitz. Say, Avita Zentia Nazi Balls. And then it blows up in a perfect way of both satisfaction and horror. Yeah. And those things, I just can't summarize it in that. There's so much.
We'll have to dedicate much more time to this one.
Much more. There's just so much to talk about. And I will just say, the best part about this movie, in my opinion, is how much I can watch this film and still be afraid. Yeah. Like I'm horrified by what happens in this. And just again, with going right back to the subtitles, when the opening scene when they're talking in French, he says he exhausts it, but he's still using bigger words in French to explain that. Yeah. They talk in English, and then he reveals that he knew that they were there, and they just wanted to make sure that they didn't hear and understand. And then they bring that even back later. My only other issue with this is that there's little moments where they say, like, merci, and then it's, like, no translation. It's just merci, and then they say merci, and it's thank you. Or I would want to ask Tarantino if that was intentional, if it was maybe just a slip-up. I wouldn't be upset if it was. I mean, if it's Inglorious Bastards, I'm not going to be upset about it.
And that seems like a good place to switch over to Django. Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of which, but no, in terms of, we don't really have much else to say about it. So
unless we're
not segueing, because
more time.
If we segue, we're gonna just come up with. Speaking of racial insensitivity,
speaking of great planes, something like that.
Whatever. Okay,
Django was great.
I just saw this movie recently again. I can't believe how much this movie is just so. This movie is fantastic. Yeah.
My only complaints with this are really nitpicky.
You want to go into those first?
I think just while they're on my mind.
Okay.
I do not like the John Lennon sunglasses. Okay. For whatever reason, I think they're too over the top. Yeah, I think they're a little too over the top. Okay. I love Jim Croce. I do. But I don't think that his song fit the scene that they were in at the time.
I agree. No, I can agree with that. I love the song too.
I listen to Jim Croce all the time, but it did not fit it. at that time.
If people get mad at us on that, just tell us, who is Jim Croce? No. I hope I'm saying his name right. I always forget.
I've heard crochet. I've heard
I'm
crotchy,
like, I don't know. Anyway, crotchy. It's crochet.
Yeah.
But anyway, so continue.
Also, the little horse dance at the end. I would have preferred just the classic Western, jump on the horse and ride off into the sunset.
Or even if it just ends with like an explosion and he turns around to camera and smiles. Yeah, that would be
like that. The little horse dance. No, that didn't really win me over. I still didn't mind it. It's just I think it could have been better. Again, maybe as we talk more, I'll be reminded, but really, it's just those three that are sticking out in my mind.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember a few things. There was one big thing, and this is a complaint where I do say this is a Tarantino problem, where the opening Inglorious is so great because even though it was the first time I saw it, when you know that that's a Tarantino scene, you know it's going to be violent, and it's going to be horrifying, because he's not afraid of showing violence. No. This is where I get, like, this is Tarantino and his writing. It won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. And I understand what he's doing. He's not just making a Western, he's making a fantasy film. This is his vision of a fantasy, like a medieval fairy tale. Yeah. My biggest problem is Kerry Washington's character. She's Brunhilde von Schaft. She's a German slave. She's a slave who speaks German, which is a great setup for later on with Dr. King Schultz. But she is not given really anything to do in this movie.
She's really just more of an objective.
She is the princess. Yeah. Which I understand it's for the story's sake. Like she says, Brunhilde von Schaft is a famous princess story that is told in German. It's like, is there a mountain? It's a German folk tale. There's always going to be a mountain. Yeah. I just want to quote that line. It's so funny. But no, there's just... She's just an objective in this movie. I'm not saying that in a bad way. You can have a character be an objective, that's fine. But I just say to myself, I want her to do something. And I want her to do something... Like, Kerry Washington's a great actress. Yeah. And she's great in this role. But that was my biggest problem when I saw this movie again. I'm just like... I mean, yeah, I have that same problem. The dancing thing. Jim Croce's song is not as huge a thing because it's kind of a little bit. But no, I definitely get it. And the sunglasses, while not in the time, I get too. Yeah. I can understand why you're not a fan of that. But there is some...
The KKK scene.
That is exactly what I was just thinking about. I realize how watching this scene, there is nothing funny about racism.
No.
There is something funny about racism now. Because I'm just thinking, when has the KKK ever been funny? I think there was one moment that's kind of funny, but has nothing to do with that. It was Forrest Gump, when you find out that one of his great-grandfathers was a Confederate soldier, and he was like the founder of the KKK. Yeah. I kind of laugh at that. This scene it's like a Shakespearean scene where it's like there's the one comedy moment. Yeah. And
the funny thing is, you look at it, and their eye holes are all over the place.
Oh my!
It's awful.
I want to just quote. It's like nobody starts shooting. Nobody shoot them until they start shooting first. It's way too smart for these jokers. We're gonna whoop that. Oh, I don't want to say the word, but I just want to say it. I have no problem just saying it if it's in a movie format, but yeah, I won't say it. But then he's like, "Well, I can't see anything in this thing. Are we ready or what?" Well, I'm just screwing with my... Oh, I just made my worse. It's like, who made this goddamn mess? Willard's wife, well, make your own goddamn mask. It's like, that is exactly...
So funny.
It's like, did anybody bring in extra bags? No, nobody brought in extra bags.
So... The best part of it was when they're all riding down the hill and they start falling off because they can't see.
I can't see out of this thing. It's like, I can't see out of this thing. I can't shoot this thing and I can't ride in this thing. Well, screw all y'all. I'll watch my wife make 30 bags for you ungrateful sons of bitches. How about, I think we can all agree
that the bags were a good idea. Not putting any blame anywhere, but they could have been done better.
Right, yeah. So how about we don't use the bags this time, but next time we go full regalia.
And it's horrible, but also funny because they say there is going to be a next time.
This is a raid! I can't see, you can't see. Only thing that matters is can the damn horse see? That's a raid! Oh.
It's awful. It's horrible. We shouldn't be laughing at that. It's so funny.
So we've dedicated a few minutes to that. I will say also, like, the cartoony, when King Schultz is coming down, the big tooth is funny.
Yeah.
The funniest scene, though, the thing that makes me laugh, and I tried not laughing at this, is the worst part to laugh. It's when the big credits, it's like, after having a profitable winter, they went, and they went to Mississippi. And underneath is a bunch of slaves in their muzzles and in chains, and I'm just saying to myself, I am laughing so hard right now.
One more nitpicky thing. I know that everyone's blasted him for it. His Australian accent. Tarantino's Australian accent.
No, you know what? And I don't find that a nitpick. But, he did it in the sense of trying, because there was like a person there and there was attached to the project, but they were waiting too long. I'm sorry, it was so awful. Bad. It was bad. And you know what? That scene in general, I don't care for. After the Candyland massacre, the movie's ending is, I get it, it works, but it's also kind of. I'm not saying it should have ended with massacre. I'm not saying it should have ended that way, but it adds a question. It's like, it could have, because I asked the question, where does all those guards go? Where did they go?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the movie doesn't know, but regardless. No, but I'm going to say this. What were we saying? The Mississippi thing. Okay, we're away from funny now. Because, my gosh, this is just pretty... And then his blue suit. This is where the costumes just become fantastic. His blue suit makes me laugh. But aside from that, the one thing I'm going to say I really, really loved... I think Christoph Waltz, again, does a great job. And some people... Like, I had a teacher who said he does the same performance that he does in Inglorious. No, he doesn't. No. It's the same voice. Yeah. He doesn't change his voice at all, but it's a very different movie. He's playing the mentor character. He's playing this role.
That's like saying Samuel L. Jackson always does the same thing in Tarantino.
He does the same thing in every other movie. It's not a Tarantino movie. He does
same voice, different characters.
Another quick funny thing is the scene where he's in the bar tab. Like, again, dedication to screenplay. I'm really glad it won because of that bartender scene. I'm like, why did he shoot the sheriff? He's like, now you can get the marshal. And then he explains the marshal, what happened, and that whole thing where they're all out aiming guns. Wonderful. Yeah. Hilarious scene. And a really, again, focusing on the little details. That's why this won. And I think it deserved it.
It did.
Here's where I say, I'm not a huge Leonardo DiCaprio fan. I don't think you are either.
No.
No.
That was his best performance.
You started liking him in The Departed.
It was The Departed, but it wasn't necessarily him. Mm-hmm. I liked Matt Damon more, and I still like Mark Wahlberg more. He did a great job, but I still liked those two characters more. Yeah.
This is the movie, when I saw this film, I said to myself, give that man an Oscar. Because he should have won an Oscar for that role. He should have at least been nominated. I've seen movies where people get nominated for 2 movies. Yeah. He was amazing. That was fantastic. In this film. I can't explain just how good it was, but he did something where he went to a place that is vile, and he went somewhere to make this character just so disgusting. And Tarantino even said this is the worst character he's written in terms of vileness. And I think that DiCaprio did this role in a way that wasn't just saying he's evil, hate him. He's saying he's evil for this reason. Yes. And he shows so much joy and youthful energy in this. It was fantastic. I can't praise him enough for this role. And the scene where he delivers the skull scene, and where he's talking. Oh wow, the skull scene. Yeah, but I even credit Samuel L. Jackson for this. He plays this head house Negro. Oh, he's evil there too. I think he's even worse. Like he's so determined to just be to ruin everything for everyone. Just he's selfish. And another thing that I love about Tarantino's screenplay writing is when he writes those characters that know the plot that the heroes are going to do and nobody else does. Those reveals, like in Jackie Brown. Oh yeah. Those are great moments. Oh, for sure. But and a lot of people praise Leonardo for smashing his hand on this. And you know what? As
Good
someone
for him for keeping it up.
as someone who's been through that, I can understand that is a very hard thing. I don't think it's necessarily improvised, because so many people put it on improvised lists. It's not an improvised thing. It's something he did in the heat of the moment, which I guess you could say is improv, but it's still Tarantino's dialogue in a really character fitting scene that he would do that.
Yeah.
And so
he just owned it. He did a great job.
Yeah. And I think Jamie Foxx does a good job in this too. He's very cool in this movie, and I appreciate him more when he's playing those different roles.
Yeah.
I don't think it's amazing, but I do think he does a great job. I can't say anything to really attack this movie except Tarantino. This is where I can say, Tarantino, you made one mistake.
Yeah, it's really the nitpicky.
Yeah, it's the nitpicky things. I don't have, and I don't have an issue with him taking the role away from someone and not wasting their time for one scene. It's not a problem. But I agree. This ending, even the end credit scene. There's an end credit scene where they ask the question, "Who was that Negro?" And then it comes up, and I'm just kind of like, it doesn't need that.
No.
It kind of feels a little longer than it should be. It
was forced.
But I can't complain too much, because this movie is really grand and really epic and funny, and
it's everything that we wanted from Tarantino.
Yep, and you know what? That shootout scene, I hold that to being so cool. It's quick, but it's really great. It's got a great explosion, a great build up to the whole "you want me to shake your hand" moment. Like, that is such a selfish, because King Schultz, if he gives him a handshake, he loses. Yeah. Above all else, if he shakes his hand, he's lost.
And he did not want to lose.
And even then, he shoots him, and it's not a moment of, like, feeling good. Like, you feel great that he killed him, but he loses his own life as a sacrifice. And the violence in this movie, while it's stylized, there's a purpose to it. Like, the shootout is just to be really huge. Yeah. But the slaughter of the Mandingo fighter with the dogs.
Oh,
that's horrifying. Yeah. I think about that. When I think about it, it's more horrifying than it actually is, because he doesn't show much. And again, Zoe Bell in this role, she plays the woman with the mask over her mouth. Right. So that's another Zoe Bell moment.
I think this is a great time to focus on the Hateful Eight, his latest one. Yeah.
I'm just smiling now, because this is the one where I think this is the first Tarantino movie I saw in theaters. Right. And I'm just gonna say, this was my favorite. When you ask me if Pulp Fiction, this is my favorite.
This is your favorite?
If I'm considering, I don't even just think it's his favorite. I think this is definitely his most underrated to me. It's got like a 63 with critics on Metacritic. I don't know what the average score is on. I'm not looking at Tomato Meter score. I'm looking at the average score for the Hateful Eight. And the audience score is like a 7.7. So I'm like, are you kidding me?
It should be much higher.
Oh my lord, this movie is so. I'm gonna say way too much.
I liked Tarantino's description of it. He wanted to go back more to Reservoir Dogs, so keep everyone in one confined setting, and kind of draw out the conversation. And we haven't really mentioned this before, but how Tarantino just divides everything into I call them chapters.
Yes, and I like that. I like how he separates them. It's a good way for audiences to kind of separate everything in their minds from scenes, and so they can at least know that it's going to have a good pace. Yeah, and that this movie has a really great pace. It was 3 hours because he wanted to do one of those like road shows with this, because he shot it in 70 millimeter. He wanted to put it in theaters with an overture, an intermission. Yeah, I didn't see that when I saw it in my theater, but. I would love to just make that a thing, like in my house, if I ever watch this in the future. Like, I own the soundtrack. This is also the first movie soundtrack I owned. The second one was La La Land. But I would love to just put on an overture for this movie, 10 minutes or however long, and then sit down, watch it, and then in the intermission, take a 15-minute break, go off, and because then it works as well, because then it goes 15 minutes has passed since we left our characters.
But which would be perfect. Just so that everyone knows, the reason I call them chapters is because Tarantino writes all of his screenplays like books.
And actually, he calls them chapters too. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I actually own the script to The Hateful Eight, and it's written in chapter form too. Yeah. Yeah. I love though how he just. This is his most cinematic movie. Yes. I will say that this is this is why I consider it to be even one of his best films. Like, so many people can say, I don't like this. I don't like this. I love how cinematic this movie is. From the camera, to the costumes, to the location, to the music. This is the best, one of the best movie scores.
It's a perfect blend of everything.
Ennio Morricone, getting him, the spaghetti western master for composing.
For the scores. Wow.
And finally getting his Oscar for this, I just say to myself, amazing.
That is.
And it's haunting. And I always said, but isn't it the same song? No, it's not. It's the same theme. And this is where I realized the importance of music in film.
Especially in Westerns. With Westerns, it's all about the themes. I was just watching the Clint Eastwood movies again, and the themes are similar, but they all have something different because the character is different every time, and that represents how the characters change.
There's so much, though, in this movie, and I agree with you with the themes when they're changing, and then there's there's two moments when the music is completely different. The moment where, Daisy Domergue is, when Daisy Domergue, I'm just kind of getting a little, oh boy, because I'm just thinking of Daisy Domergue. No, when Jennifer Jason Leigh gives an amazing performance, I'm just going to say that. Scary-tastic. When she is chasing after, trying to get the gun, the music has changed. It's like this dun 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 dun, like really sharp, really precise, really horrifying. And then the ending where they're reading the Lincoln letter, it's this like triumphant, like trumpet sound. It's relaxing and soothing, and then it fades into the best end closing song. It's like, listen, all you people. And it's like, there won't be many coming home. I just say to myself, that is how it should have ended. Yeah. It was the perfect. When you watch a movie and you say, stop it there, and it does, you just want to lie back and say, ah.
What I really liked about it was, in most of Tarantino's other movies, the characters don't change a lot, but they stay true to themselves. This is one of the first times where you actually see characters changing. So,
Oh, yeah.
Like the one guy who was, I forget the character name, but the really racist, sexist guy, and at the end he's teaming up with Samuel L. Jackson hanging.
Sheriff of Red Rock. His name is no, it's not Billy Crass. That's from Django. But I'm gonna remember it right away.
But anyway, he had a
Chris Mannix.
There we go. Because he had a complete shift.
Yeah.
He was a racist. He hated him beforehand, and then as soon as they go through this whole ordeal with each other, like, yeah, I can work with you.
It's a political movie without being political.
And they realize they're both going to die together.
Yeah, and Samuel L. Jackson even says, "We're going to die, white boy." Yeah, but we can't decide on. We have no decision on that. But there is one thing we can decide, and that's how we kill this bitch. And I'm just, when I hear that line, I say to myself, I forget how evil she is every time. This is the one movie I've seen this movie and Pulp Fiction and Inglorious Bastards probably the most.
Okay.
And when I see this movie every time, I forget how vile she is. I feel sympathy for her because it's like, oh, this poor woman, she's chained up at this. No, what is she?
She's evil.
When you get to hell, John, tell him Daisy sent you. That scene is horrifying. The vomiting poison scene, and so perfectly set up. It's like an Agatha Christie novel. Yeah. He said that's another thing he wanted to do was a mystery, and good really for him. He did it very well with. The whole idea of with filming techniques, like when we find out the coffee's poisoned, the coffee can when she's doing her song is bright blue. It's right on the stove. We see it. And OB gets a cup, and then we see John get a cup, and he drinks from it. And I thought he was going to be immune at first because I wasn't sure how it was going to happen. But then she just says, "Whatever you say, John," and then he starts to vomit. I'm like, "Oh, I'm wrong. He's going to die." And he's going to die hard.
Yeah.
What you said, though, about characters changing.
Yeah.
This is my favorite Samuel L. Jackson performance. I don't think it's his best. I think this is my favorite. Because the scene where he talks to General Smithers about how his son died. And in the script, it says that is how his son died.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a matter of, he's just suggesting... This is
what happened.
This is what happened, okay. And I think I'm not saying to myself, "Oh, gross." I'm saying, "Good," because that man sitting down in that chair deserves.
The general's evil. I mean, he just saw everyone in the haberdashery get murdered, and he's like, I'll keep my mouth shut. What do I care?
Yeah. These are vile people.
Yeah.
And Tarantino does vile people very well. Even Oswaldo, like, he's so, good heavens, a woman in this white hell. He's the hangman of Red Rock, and he justifies, he's talking about his justice thing. There's so much in this movie that just makes me say to myself, that is excellent. The one question I did have, though, with the cinematography is, like, Joe Gage is, like, hiding, like, there's chains in the way of where he is. I was kind of like, what did that mean? But it might just be, kind of an atmosphere kind of thing that I can get. But there's so much. When I read the screenplay, it opened my eyes to so much. There was initially a moment where there was a cat in the script. Yeah. I think. And I'm so glad that's not in here, because then it's just kind of a false sense of security. Now, some people, this is a complaint people have had. Okay. About this movie. And a movie reviewer that I respect a lot, Chris Stuckman, talked about the problem he has. There's a transition into, once we reveal, we have the big reveal of like, oh, there's a person in the basement, and then everybody hit, and then transitioning into what happened earlier. Yes. People have a problem with that. They have a problem with how it transitions, the whole thing that kind of sets up. I don't. No. Because this is one of those moments where, again, the whole idea of... Because I think of it back to the beginning of the Inglorious Bastards thing, except an extended. Imagine if the entire movie, or the entire, first 30 minutes took place in that little hut, and we had no idea there were Jewish people there, and then all of a sudden, we get that same reveal. Yeah. It's the same kind of thing with that. It's not the idea of, oh, these people are... Oh, no, there's danger. There's danger coming from below that we didn't consider. And it makes sense. It's the brother of the person that they are taking. And I guess you could say, oh, well, how did they know they were going to be in Red Rock? Why didn't they just go to Red Rock? Blah, 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 blah. But again, I don't have problems with that. Nobody
knew what was happening. Nobody knew the blizzard was coming either. So.
They even said, but you didn't count on the blizzard. You didn't count on us. So you didn't know we were going to be here. So you thought it was a quick grab. And I guess you could say, oh, well, how was Chris Mannix all the way out in the snow? That's another thing of correctly establishing intent. Like in Reservoir Dogs, going back to that, Blue, Mr. Blue, it's kind of like, well, once he has nothing to do, he has nothing to do in the film. Yeah. Chris Mannix has stuff to do in this movie. He's the sheriff, but we don't trust him. We don't know why he's coming from there. We don't know where he's coming from. What is he doing out in the middle of nowhere? These are still questions that are never answered to us, but they're still given something to do throughout the movie. Yeah. And I love the addition of the Lincoln letter for this,
that was a great touch.
Film. And it's why he has it. He's right. Yeah. I would not want to kill that man like back in the day if he had a letter from Abraham Lincoln. No. Like it's such a tightly made script. Yeah. Every detail, even if it's not correct with the times, I don't care.
It was so smart. I don't
care if this is a historically accurate movie, because
it just that sounds like a good place to end for Hateful Eight. Now I want to ask you a question. Yeah. Tarantino says he wants to do 10 movies. What 2 styles are you hoping he does?
Okay. I'm very glad you cut me off with Hateful Eight, because I was just gonna. That's one I'm going to be making my own video for Hateful Eight very not soon, but I'm going to be doing that because there's a lot I got to talk about. 2 styles. I've heard rumors that he's doing another crime kind of film with kind of a historical crime thing. I can see that. I don't kind of say good, but again, I'm never going to say Tarantino don't do that. What? No, I'm always going to be happy. As long as it's not in the same vein as like True Romance, I will never be upset. Because then I don't want it to be like a reverse M. Night Shyamalan. Because I think M. Night Shyamalan and Tarantino had 2 very interesting kind of careers. Another video on that. But what I will say is I want him to do a movie, not necessarily superhero, but I want him to do something kind of in the same vein as like, what is it? I want him to go back to the love story kind of idea. Because that's what True Romance was in a script. I want him to make it a little bit more tighter. I want it to be maybe like a love lost story. Kind of in the sense of like The Godfather, like part 2, like like the crumble of that empire kind of thing, or maybe another part 2 series would be cool, like something like that. And then what I don't know really anything else. Like maybe a film noir would be cool. I'd like maybe not like Sin City, like with Robert Rodriguez, but something a little on the detective kind of style too. He does really. He's kind of proven that mysteries, even in Inglorious Bastards, when he's trying to figure out like what happened here, he does those pretty well. I do know he doesn't want to do this, and I don't want him to do this. He doesn't want to do a biopic.
Okay, no,
he thinks not. No, he thinks that those are like actors being selfish doing those films, and I completely agree. Yeah. The only person I think can do biopics, at least into my knowledge, very well that I've seen consistently is Martin Scorsese.
Yes.
There's so many I can list off that he's done so well, but that is it. The biopic is the one I don't want him to do. What about you?
I mean, the two styles. Honestly, I want to see what he does with sci-fi. I'm honestly curious to see him do a sci-fi movie,
but not like a huge like space one.
Not a space one, just science fiction, kind of maybe more like Alien kind of thing.
If he was gonna,
So just something more like that, because adding dark humor into that would be very enjoyable, and just to see what kind of nightmarish scenarios he can come up with extraterrestrials. I'm down for that, and I agree. Film noir,
like Guillermo del Toro, I think would be a really cool director. Like if you've seen Hellboy?
Yes,
he's the guy that did Hellboy. He's a really cool creature designer. If they teamed up, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
I will say, you just said sci-fi. You know, it'd be cool that he could maybe do, but I don't think he will because it's both a video game adaptation and sci-fi.
Right.
Red Faction.
Yeah.
That would be so. I would love to see
that,
Guerrilla kind of like in that same style. Yeah. But so we're at the end. We've gone on for a long time. So what I will say this. First of all, Paul, thank you once again for coming on here. I really appreciate you.
Glad to be here. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for sticking with us. And I do want to ask you, in this consideration, what do you think is so great about Tarantino as a filmmaker? What has he done just for cinema, do you think? And what makes him such a great artist in that sense?
I mean, I think that he's willing to try things that other people wouldn't. So he's willing to conquer different taboos. He doesn't care what other people think about him, so he's always willing to give an honest view on his opinion. He's willing to cover gritty subjects, unlike anyone else. He still uses classic film, so he's keeping cinematography alive. Just that, and he's making people think about how smart scripts can be written. Because the biggest loss in Hollywood over the past 8 years for sure has been scripts have been getting weaker and weaker, and there's so many plot holes.
Yeah, I can agree with you with
Tarantino's making, or at least showing people that a tight script can be written.
Mm-hmm. I can definitely agree with you on that, because there's so many films that I look at my collection. The films that I own are the ones with the great screenplays. Not necessarily the ones that won screenplay. I mean, but the ones that have really great writing. Yeah. Like like any one of his films have really great screenplays, and I think I agree with you. He keeps film alive in that same sense. I don't necessarily agree with his beliefs on digital cameras and everything like that, because I'm shooting this on a crappy Mac camera right now, and it's the one way I can speak.
You don't have to, but the thing is, that's what he believes in, and he doesn't care what other people. He does what he likes,
and he's at the position where he can do what he wants, and good for him. And I think if Tarantino is going to be making movies, he should make the films that he wants to make, and not the movies that the audience wants.
Yeah.
Like
and that's what he's always done.
Yeah, and I'm so glad, and I'm glad that. I hate when people ask him stupid questions that he's answered for years, like the whole violence and swearing thing. Those are not the first times. Why don't they ask that about
the funny thing is he just doubles down on it.
And good for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with what Tarantino does. I think he's truly a master of his craft, and I think if there's any indication of that, I think the best line in any film of his that indicates just how much he thinks in prioritizing stuff is the final line from Pulp Fiction. In the scene where Samuel L. Jackson recites his, again, written Bible verse. It's not an actual verse in the Bible.
Right.
When he says, he's thought about it for years, and he never gave much thought to what it meant. This isn't really into terms of Tarantino. Yeah. It's in terms of what he considers about men and about people.
Right.
And he says, I always, it could be you're the evil man, I'm the righteous man. And Mr. 9mm here, he's the shepherd protecting me in the valley of darkness. Or could mean you're the righteous man and I'm the shepherd, and it's the world that's evil and selfish. I'd like to believe that, but that's not true. The truth is you're the weak, I'm the tyranny of evil men, but I'm trying to become the shepherd. And it's that multiple perspectives and beliefs. You can believe any single one of those about it. You can believe that Tarantino was a certain filmmaker, but the purpose of his films and the purpose of what he does is always just bring back to the fact that he loves what he's doing. And he's doing it for a certain reason. And as long as he's making us ask those questions, those multiple choice possibilities, I think that he is definitely one of the best filmmakers to come. And you know what? If I'm being honest, Reservoir Dogs, you're right. It's not my favorite. I'm not going to say he shouldn't have made it. It's a movie that says, look at me! Look, pay attention! And then Pulp Fiction is the one that says, now listen to me. Listen to what I'm going to say and what I'm going to do.
Legacy continues from there.
Absolutely. Once again, Paul, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, hopefully you guys stuck around for this entire video, and I thank you guys so much for watching this again. Like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Also, leave a comment down below. What is your favorite Tarantino movie? What is your favorite moment? What's your favorite scene? What do you like us talking about? Do you want us to make these shorter? I don't care if you do. I'm probably going to make a 2-hour one on Hateful Eight altogether. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and as always, take care.